The UFC heads back to Kansas City, Missouri for the third time. And with them, they'll be bringing a high-level welterweight matchup, a high-stakes welterweight main event, I should say, between Ian Machado, Garry, and Carlos Prates. Very fun fight here between the two guys. Obviously, Garry looking to bounce back from that co-main event loss that he had against Shavkat Rakhmonov in December. And Carlos Prates looking to continue his finishing ways to go out there and establish himself as the next number one contender. Reminder that this is the quick picks version of the UFC Kansas City breakdown. I normally drop my full card breakdowns earlier on in fight week, which I've already done. So if you're looking to get a little bit more information about a specific matchup here, the MMA Lawcast is where you need to check it out. That's on the YouTube page. You can either check that in the link in the description below, or just go to the YouTube channel and you'll be able to find the MMA Lawcast, where I go over an hour talking about all 14 of these fights. But for the sake of this segment, I'll be getting right to the point of every single fight. So if you'd like to save some time, I got you covered here. But again, if you have some questions about some of these predictions, check out the MMA Lawcast as I go way more in depth in those breakdowns. Also, just a quick reminder that there are a few regional events going down this weekend as well. Cage Warriors 188 goes down on Saturday morning / afternoon. I'll have a full card breakdown on YouTube for that on Friday, so stay tuned for that. And then there's also KSW 105 and Octagon 70 going down on Saturday afternoon. I'll only have written versions of those breakdowns on the MMA LOTN Patreon page, which you can find in the link in the description below. And I'll obviously have track plays for all the cards this weekend as well. Giving my best bets and some degenerate parlays, covering each card from pretty much every angle that you can expect. So make sure you guys check it out. The MMA the MMA Lock of the Night Patreon. Link for that is in the description below. All right. Jibber jabbering too much here. I hope you're laced up and ready to go, because we're off and running with the first fight of the night between Chelsea Chandler and Jocelyn Edwards. Although the physicality of Chandler gives me a little bit of pause in this matchup, I believe the technical advantages from Edwards will allow her to touch up Chandler from distance, throwing in combinations and a ton of head kicks, which will eventually lead to Edwards winning this fight on the scorecards. Next up, we got Timothy Cuamba going up against Roberto Romero. Very fun fight here between two guys still looking to break into the UFC. But I think Cuamba's speed and athleticism advantage will allow him to land better shots from distance, and hopefully a renewed confidence in his wrestling will allow him to take Romero down at opportune moments to really make this look good for the judges, and which is why I'm going to pick Cuamba to win this fight on the scorecards. Next up, Jacqueline Amorim going up against Poliana Viana. I believe Amorim is just significantly better than Poliana Viana, and I think that we'll see Amorim get this fight to the ground with relative ease, and I think it's just a matter of time before she eventually sinks in a submission and forces the tap. Next up, very fun fight here between Malcolm Wellmaker going up against Cameron Saaiman. I have to lean Wellmaker here, as he is the significantly superior striker. Although he is a little bit hittable, Saaiman might have some success there. But I think Wellmaker has good enough durability, good enough defensive grappling, and I think he'll eventually be able to snipe Saaiman from distance and put him away by knockout. Next up, we got Blackshear going up against Alatengheili. This could be somewhat competitive in the grappling realm, considering the wrestling that Alatengheili has been showing off in his last several fights, and I think that could cause Blackshear a little bit of issues here. But I believe Blackshear's power in his striking, as well as his BJJ black belt, should allow him to stay safe in most of these positions and end up grinding this fight out and winning it on the scorecards. Next up, Chris Gutierrez going up against John Castaneda. These guys have been matched up a few times this year already. Knock on wood, they finally stepped foot into the cage this weekend. But I do like Gutierrez in this fight to stop the takedowns of Castaneda, slowing down Castaneda with his classic calf-kicking approach, and then utilizing his hands whenever Castaneda gets frustrated and blitzes the pocket recklessly. Look for Gutierrez to touch him up and give us a classic Gutierrez performance, winning this fight on the scorecards. Next up, we got Evan Elder going up against Gage Young. Elder was originally scheduled to fight somebody else, and Gage Young has stepped in on short notice for his UFC debut in front of his home crowd. Unfortunately, he's going up against a very tough Evan Elder, who should be able to match the striking of Young here. Even though Young is a little bit slicker with his hands, I think Elder throws with enough power, and I think he can mix in his physicality to really keep Young muzzled, and I believe that will eventually lead to Elder winning this fight on the scorecards. Next up, we got Matt Schnell going up against Jimmy Flick. A ton of love coming in on Flick as he was closer to plus 230 earlier this week. Now he finds himself all the way down at plus 140. Luckily, when I researched this matchup, I was able to get closer to that plus 200 line because I believe he has a unorthodox enough grappling and jiu-jitsu game to eventually catch Schnell in something and eventually pull off a submission victory. I know a lot of people like to talk down on Flick because of his nearly absent striking game, but I think he'll be able to be responsible enough to eventually cause Schnell to take this fight to the ground and from there eventually sink in a submission. Next up, we got Ikram Aliskerov going up against Andre Muniz. I believe the wrestling of Aliskerov will allow him to shut down the jiu-jitsu game of Muniz, allowing Aliskerov to keep this fight in the striking realm and eventually find that big shot as Muniz slows down probably in the second or third round. Next up, we got Randy Rude Boy Brown going up against Nicholas Dalby. Dalby is now 40 years old, and I believe his reliance on his hardware is going to start to deteriorate, allowing Brown to showcase those flaws in Dalby's game, and we'll see a classic Brown performance where he batters Dalby from distance, eventually winning this fight on the scorecards. Next up, we got Michel Pereira going up against Abus Magomedov, and I really like me some Pereira in this fight. I think his explosivity, athleticism, and power will shut down the grappling game of Magomedov, and we've seen once that doesn't work for Magomedov, he starts to slow down and starts to break, and I think Pereira will force him to break, eventually getting that second or third round TKO. Next up, we got Giga Chikadze going up against David Onama. I've been relatively low on David Onama throughout his UFC career, but he continues to prove me wrong and coming out on top in a lot of these matchups. I expect him to go out there and meet the jab of Chikadze with bigger power, and I think that could allow him to eventually mix in the grappling game where he could have some success here by grinding Chikadze out on the mat. But I also think it will be the big power that Onama lands, which will lead him to win this fight on the scorecards by landing more damage over the course of 15 minutes. That brings us to our co-main event now, as we have the retirement fight of Anthony Lionheart Smith, 59 fights into his pro career, taking on Mingyang Zhang, who's really trying to carve out a spot for himself in the UFC light heavyweight roster. I'm the first person to go out there and willingly fade Anthony Smith time and time again, but we need to be very wary about the experience advantage he holds here over the Chinese fighter. I get it. Mingyang Zhang has 20 plus professional fights, but he has not fought somebody like Anthony Smith, and a lot of the competition he's had in the past were much lower level guys. If Zhang is not able to get that first round knockout, Smith could start to run away with this late or even get that submission game going as he showed against Vitor Petrino. Ultimately, I am going to lean with Zhang with very low confidence, as I think he ends up finding that shot to put Smith on wobbly legs and follow up with some ground and pound to get him out of there in the first round. Next up, and the final fight here we're going to be talking about in the main event is going to be Ian Machado Garry going up against Carlos Prates. Very fun fight here. Obviously, Prates, a fan favorite. I think you can say the absolute opposite for Machado Garry, but I'm going to have to lean Garry ever so slightly here. I think he has the better discipline and better technical game overall. Prates is very dangerous, and he's obviously finished all of his UFC fights thus far, but Garry is the most technically sound fighter that he's competed against at this point. Look for Garry to mix his striking with his grappling and eventually putting up a good enough body of work that the judges will eventually score that fight in his favor. Not to mention the 5-round experience Garry already has from his Cage Warriors days to even the last fight that he had against Shavkat Rakhmonov. I think that will bolster Garry's game here and allow him to win this fight on the scorecards. There you guys go. Quick picks for UFC Kansas City. That is a wrap on the content for today. I will be back tomorrow for the Lockheed 2-step / Lockheed Trinity free parlay, as well as the prop drop for this UFC Kansas City card. Hope to see you guys then. Peace.